So hi guys, welcome to episode 5 of KFitt TV, and we're absolutely stoked this evening to be joined by national marathon champion and our newest Olympian hopeful, or Olympic hopeful, Aoife Cooke, and her coach John Starrett. Because our contacts are so good, we didn't just get the athlete, we got the coach also. So we're going to talk to Aoife about her Olympic journey, or her marathon journey really, that led to this point. And I have to get this in there, but we do share something in common. If my first marathon was 3:15 as well, but I haven't moved on that far from it yet. But I actually read that when you spoke a little bit about after your 3:15, and you said by your own words that it kind of was damaging emotionally or mentally and physically. You found it. Tell us a little bit about that and what kind of led you into the marathon, what triggered you into the marathon, and how bad did it feel to do a 3:15 for an athlete like yourself?
Yeah, so I suppose really I decided to do the Cork Marathon back in 2015. I was just kind of starting to get back into training myself. So I'd been kind of out for a few years, and I just decided to kind of get back. And I suppose, like, you know, the marathon is this kind of big, big thing for runners. You know, it's a, a bucket list kind of item. And for me, I think, partly it was that. And also, I suppose when I was running before, I would have been targeting more the shorter distances like 5K and 10K. And I just thought, because I was just getting back, that, this was something completely different. I don't have anything, I can't go back and compare my times now to the times I was running back then, because they're two completely different things. So those two reasons were kind of why I just decided to sign up for the Cork Marathon. It was kind of something to motivate me to train. So that's what I did. Now I was kind of just doing my own thing at the time, just kind of training myself, wasn't really all that knowledgeable at the time. It was just something I was getting back into. But I had high ambitions of trying to do a 3-hour marathon on about, like, I started back training probably in February, and pretty much from scratch, so I suppose I didn't really respect the distance. I didn't give it the respect that it requires and deserves, really. So I went out and I ran, and I went at that pace, for a good up to halfway. I was probably on target for about 2:55. And then it was just kind of from 18 miles on, just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. It was a very, very long few miles back home after that. So it was very deflating. It was one of those things where I was like run walking by the end of it. So it was definitely a big experience.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. Yeah, it's carnage and soul destroying, and then there are people that are just tiptoeing by you, and you have to try and keep it together and try and get to the end. But and after that, then you said that you kind of were mentally drained from it. Was it from the disappointment, or?
Yeah, like, I suppose, I had, in my head, I wanted to do sub 3, and, I was 15 minutes slower than that. So I was a bit deflated from that. I suppose, as I said, I wasn't back training very long, and I didn't really give, the marathon the respect that it deserves. And kind of immediately after the race, I was kind of in my head, never doing a marathon again, kind of a thing. And I kind of went back to just the shorter ones then. Like, I did everything up to half marathon then for probably a couple of years. So I stayed away from it for a couple of years, but decided to go back to it then after that.
They say, someone said to me one time in running, pain has no memory, so when you kind of forget the pain of that marathon, you then went on, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was Amsterdam the next venture in 2017?
Yeah, Amsterdam was the next one then. So I suppose kind of for the couple of years that I was doing the other distances, I was kind of steadily improving, like, my times. Like, I was doing decent enough half marathons. I was doing kind of sub 80, probably kind of knocked it down to about 78 minutes in my half marathon at that point. So I kind of decided then, look, I was training better. I was a bit more knowledgeable on what I was doing. I'd been training for a couple of years at that stage. So I said, look, I'm improving over every other distance. Why don't I give the marathon another shot? I suppose with with Cork, it was definitely a huge learning experience. I know it didn't go to plan and it was horrible, but you learn from those sort of experiences as well. And I'm fairly confident I won't make the same mistakes again that I did in Cork. So it was probably good that it happened.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And you ran a 2:46, I think, if I'm not mistaken, which is a chunk of maybe 30 minutes off your time in Cork. So that must have been a huge boost to your confidence. And all the while you were probably being unknowingly stalked by the man sitting just above your head there in the right-hand corner on your Strava account. He was obviously keeping an eye. And after Amsterdam, then after that run, you must have been really buoyed by that. Then that brought you on to your next venture. And sorry, go on.
Yeah, so after Amsterdam, I suppose I kind of 2018 wasn't a great year for me then. I was kind of, juggling a lot of things, just from like kind of changing jobs and kind of going out, self-employed. So that was kind of a big stress, and just kind of dealing with a lot of personal kind of just things at the time. So mentally, I just wasn't in a great place, and my race times were kind of showing in that, and I kind of felt a bit lost, a bit like I was stagnating a little bit. So even I had been running probably kind of 16 and a half minutes for 5K, and in 2018 I was struggling to break 18 minutes, and I was just, I didn't really know kind of what was going on, or didn't know kind of what to do from there. So it was kind of the end of 2018 then that myself and John kind of linked up.
Yeah, I actually read a piece that you said that you weren't having a good year in 2018. I think you didn't have a good at National Cross Country Championships, and you kind of felt deflated by the whole thing. And you said that you then made the call to Mr. John Starrett, aka Coach Staza, and he said to you by your own, and I quote, he told you in your first interaction that you could be an Olympian, you could qualify for the Olympics. And I'm just, when I read that, how powerful was that? Like, for somebody to be able to tell you that, just stalking your Strava account, having a look at what you can do, and knowing athletics in Ireland, and knowing the form, and knowing like that emotionally that you probably weren't feeling fantastic because you're not running well. And if you're not running well as a runner, you're not going to feel good. And it's as simple as that, really. You need to be cracking it out. But how powerful was that for somebody to be able to say, look, I think you can qualify for the Olympics? Did that lift you out of your shoes, or what?
Oh yeah, like that was like, I was sold after that,
Yeah.
So yeah,
what a pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after the national cross country in 2018, like I finished, I think it was like 39th or something. So I was like, I was very disappointed with that. I knew I definitely, had more potential than that anyway. So I knew I had to go kind of look elsewhere, kind of get help to, kind of get me out of whatever slump I was in, and get me on the right track. So I had been following a couple of people that John was coaching, and I kind of seen him, liking all my runs in Strava. So I was kind of like, who's this guy? Yeah. And so I contacted him. I sent him an email, and I kind of told him my whole story, that I felt like I was kind of lost, kind of stagnated, and I felt like I could improve, but I just didn't know how to do it. And yeah, he sent me that email then, basically that he was like, I know what to do with you. I think, you could make it to the Olympics, if we can get this right. So yeah, it kind of blew me away a little bit. I was kind of like, what's this guy taking?
Yeah.
So yeah, we took it from there then.
That's absolutely fantastic. So, John, I mean, you obviously saw a lot that the untrained eye doesn't see. You were obviously watching what she was doing and things like that, and you saw and you'd know Irish athletics pretty well. So, tell us a little bit about how you took it from there.
Well, I'd been following Aoife not for too long, just for a little while there, because I don't know. I think she was following somebody that I was following, and I saw the name. And I could see that she was a decent runner from the times, and I'd read about her, I think, in running in Cork, some online thing. So I knew vaguely who she was, and I looked at her. I remember looking at her training, and I could see that she'd plateaued, and I understood why, because I think she was doing a lot of heart rate training rather than by feel. and I could see where the opportunities were pretty quickly. And when she contacted me, I genuinely believed that I could get her to the Olympics pretty quickly. You know, I could see the path already, which would be like to get her faster over the 10 mile, and then go and do Dublin and get down around the 2:30 marks and 2:35. I think the qualifying time at the time was about 2:35. I can't remember rightly. I think it was somewhere around there. And but then they changed the time to 2:29:30, so made it more difficult. But still, I knew she could do it. And when I came back from Kenya, because I was out in Kenya when she contacted me, and when I come back from Kenya, I went down to Cork she had a session of 8 times 1 mile, and she did it with Damien Keneally. And when I saw her running, I knew straight away then that she had the potential to probably be a sub 2:22 marathon runner, 2:22:22 in time. I could see with her form and what needed to be done. And that first session that I saw of her, I think I asked them to do 8 times 1 mile in 5:20 off a 3-minute jog recovery, 400 meters, and she banged them out in 5:15s. And I could just see and that's where in my head, I sort of coined the phrase or the name for her, the elfin beast, because she looks like a little pixie, but inside you can just tell there's a massive beast raring to get out, of true fighter, you see. Yeah. And that then really, I knew then at that moment, I thought that this is, if we can keep her healthy and do the training and keep her, you know, between the rails, it is pretty much a foregone conclusion. It wasn't so much about qualifying for the Olympics, it's what we can do afterwards. For me as a coach, that was the thing. But obviously for Aoife, one stage at a time is, you know, winning races and breaking the PBs down. But for me, I'm seeing the bigger picture of it, and Aoife's sort of bought into that now, I think, as well.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it really must kind of lift your confidence, Aoife, for, you know, someone to be able to see that in you, because you know, sometimes I suppose people don't see it in themselves, and it probably takes somebody else to get you to, Jesus, maybe I can, you know, maybe I am that good, you know. I remember, I think I saw you one year in Charleville. Did you do the half in Charleville in 2018? Did you do that year, no? You win the half in 2018 or 19, don't you?
2019.
I passed you, I think, in the warm-up. I might have been going out the road and you were coming in. I remember you caught my eye. I said, there's this physical specimen coming in the road. I remember seeing you. Yeah, I was thinking it was you when I saw the pictures afterwards. I just want to jump on a little bit.
Was that me?
Yeah.
I was there too.
No, I didn't see you unless you were wearing really tight shorts with a kind of a black bib top. But you then went on to Dublin to the national championships and you won the national championships, and you became the 5th fastest Irish female marathoner of all time. And I think you ran the fastest female Irish marathon on Irish soil. Is that correct? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that, about Dublin, what it was like to win the national championships. Like, really, you obviously at this point are seeing massive gains, like to win the national championships in 2:34?
2:32.
Notes are scrambled, get rid of the notes. But yeah, tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about winning the national championships.
Yeah, it was incredible, really. So, like, I suppose, the training, like, you know, was really ramped up, obviously, for Dublin. Now, I probably didn't think that I was going to run the time that I ran. You know, I was kind of in my head thinking of 2:35. Just the way training was going and the pacing that I was doing and things. And I suppose, again, didn't have a full understanding of the process, you know, at the time. And John had predicted that I would run, he predicted I would run 2:32:39, I think is what he said. And I was kind of like, I don't know, that's probably a bit far-fetched now, you know. Yeah. But anyway, got to the start line and kind of, you know, started out at kind of 5:55 pace, which would have given me the 2:35 that I had predicted myself. And just kind of found then, like, after maybe 4 or 5 miles, that my pace was kind of picking up, and I was just kind of, again, just going by feel, and it felt comfortable, felt pretty good, you know, like I didn't feel like I was, you know, pushing my limits or anything like that. And it just kind of happened that way, you know. Yeah, obviously, you know, the last few miles are hard, they're always hard, but you know, for the most part, I was able to keep that pace fairly controlled throughout, and I just stopped looking at my watch after a while, because I was just like, you know, I knew my pace was faster than the 5:55. So, you know, as long as I was running faster than what I had planned, I was kind of like, this is fine, you know. So I was like, you know, as I was coming into the finish, saw the time on the clock, and I was like, oh, wow, you know, wasn't expecting that. And I crossed the line in 2:32:34. So I was 5 seconds faster than what John predicted.
Brilliant prediction, John. And did you know at that point that you had won the national championships? Because sometimes it's hard to tell,
I knew,
it?
Like, because
we're getting obviously some info on the way around.
No, I could see the person in first ahead of me. So she was ahead of me for a good bit of the race. Like I knew who I was competing against, you know, I knew my competition. So I kind of like, I knew I was kind of ahead of all the rest, and Anne-Marie was just kind of ahead. And I had her in my eye the whole way, and I just passed her with 2 kilometers to go. So I knew at that point, you know, unless she passed me out again, you know, that I had won it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah. And then I suppose, John, the worry then is that with trying to qualify for the Olympics, you know now at this point that you're in the shape of your life, and that it, you know, the stars really have to align, I suppose, for this to happen. And then we have a global pandemic. And I suppose the worry and the stress now is, are you going to get to race? You know, are you in the shape of your life? And yes, you're national champion, it's fantastic, but am I actually going to find a race that's going to qualify me for the Olympics? If there's a marathon, is it going to be, you know, or what was that like? What was the stress for both of you, John? Like, wait, are we going to get a race? Is this going to happen? You know, how do you keep the training, I suppose, how do you keep her in peak condition, like with periodization? Are you dropping her off, or are you tapering her out? You're trying to bring her back. You're trying to keep her interested in that kind of race mode or that race mentality. And that's got to be very, very difficult.
We were in Kenya at the time when when COVID kind of was, I wouldn't say erupted, but when it kicked off in China. And in fact, Aoife went to Kenya a couple of weeks before me, just so she could get acclimatized. So when I arrived there, she'd be ready to start training. And on the day I arrived, she was ill. She had a temperature, a cough, headaches, all the symptoms of COVID. So I had to take her off the plane straight down into the hospital. And that was an experience, taking her to the hospital in Air 10. And they said that she had some sort of infection and they didn't know what it was. So immediately the main thing was to make sure she was okay. So after a few days, she seemed to, the cough broke and the fever broke, and she was able to train. But we were sitting then looking at races, and I think we'd picked Vienna at the time to go for, because I remember, because we booked the hotels and the flights when we were sitting in the camp in the tent. And then when I got home, and then because when I got back, Aoife had come back. I think you come back before me, hadn't you? Yeah, Aoife had come back, and when I got back, you'd run the Dungarvan 10, hadn't you? And broke the course record there. So we knew she was in great shape, and the plan was to use the 6 weeks of Kenya to get her stronger over 10 miles, which is a really important part if you're going to run a fast marathon, to improve it. For me, it's a key indicator. So we had her in great shape then, and then it was just a matter of extending out for, well, there were a few marathons that we had picked, I think, lined up. There's Manchester, I think every marathon there was lined up because of COVID. There's backup plans and all sorts of things. And I remember she did a 15-miler on the build-up towards Vienna, and it was probably the best run that she'd done, and it got cancelled around about that time. So then it was a matter about thinking, okay, what are we going to do? And I just knew that this thing wasn't going to go away. I mean, when you sit down and you think about it logically, it's obviously it's going to be here for a while. The first thing, I think we went into a lockdown, and you weren't allowed to move more than 2K from your house, if I remember rightly. And where Aoife was staying, it was really hilly as well. So she tried a couple of runs, and immediately, like, a piriformis started playing up. So we said, okay, let's take an end of season break right now, because this thing's not going to go away. It's probably going to be here at least a year until they get a vaccine. So she took a good 2 weeks sort of downtime, really, 2.5 weeks. And then in that time, I came up with the idea of not just Aoife, but everybody that I was coaching, was to move them away from specific work into like a holes-in phase, which was training them for 10 miles, because it's the safest area to train in. Because down at the 5K area, the intensity of that work increases the risk of injury, especially if there's no races coming on. And then obviously you can't keep doing marathon training all year round. Whereas if you're working in and around the 10-mile area, it's a great place, because you can be ready just to spring out up into longer stuff or drop down into faster stuff. And so that was the plan. But we also had our eyes on the World Half Marathon Championships, which were going to be, just in case it was going to be on, and it transpired that they were on, and possibly Valencia as well. So through the summer, that was a goal, was just to bring her back into training gradually and get her to, so she'd be ready around about September to maybe launch into marathon training or the half. And then I'll let Aoife take over and tell you what happened.
So I suppose a few weeks before the World Half, I kind of had a fall when I was out running, and I twisted my ankle. So I had a big balloon ankle. So I had to I took about a week off fully training, I think, because of that. And then, just had to ease back into it again. So it just wasn't going to happen that I would be ready for the World Half anyway, basically. So, decided to not do that in the end. So then got back into training, and then it looked like Valencia was going to go ahead in December. We started a marathon block at that point, did a few weeks of it, and I sound very clumsy now, but fell over again, and I hurt my ankle again. It wasn't as bad as the first time around, but as well, around that time, I felt a bit all over the place again with my head, and it just wasn't a good time for me to, I suppose, get into a really heavy sort of marathon block of training. I just felt a bit overwhelmed, and just with the whole, I think, lockdown, I think we were starting to go back into a second lockdown at this stage, and it was just in my head, I just didn't know where I was and what I was doing. So we just decided to park Valencia, because the intensity, or the bulk of the training, was making me tired, and just making, everything mentally seem a lot worse than it probably was. So just decided to take it back a little bit. And this marathon then in Wrexham, I just came across it randomly online. I just Googled elite marathons for one night, just being like, okay, look, is there anything coming up in the spring maybe? And this one came up, and it looked good, they were putting all COVID protocols into place, and, small field, looped course, it looked like they had everything thought out. So I sent it on to John. He was like, it looks good, just enter it and we'll see what happens. And yeah, we just planned for that one then. So went for it.
Brilliant. Yeah, John, don't be giving away too much coaching information there. There's some of my competitors out there will be licking their lips at that 10-mile information you're giving out.
I thought you were just going to ask me about her build up to Wrexham, because there's some juicy stuff from November to beginning of February in there. But I'll keep quiet though.
You decided to go for Wrexham, and there's where, we know what happens from there. It was just absolutely phenomenal run on a looped course. You were under the qualifying standard by 30 seconds. Just for my own greedy self there, because I'm just interested in that whole before, you're at the start line for Wrexham, you're fully convinced that you can make this qualifying time. And I know that you said that you ran the early miles with a group. You found a group that were at your level or at your standard, and I know how important it is to chip away those early miles without overthinking anything, But then you said you had those last miles on your own. Obviously that group broke up, and it was down to business then really for you, maybe from 18 or 20 miles on. And even though we're only weekend warriors, we still feel that bit of pain around 18 or 20 miles. I'm just curious to know how an elite athlete like yourself copes with that. Okay, the group are gone. It's me now, and this is it. Mentally, you really got to be secure and confident in your ability and your training from there. How do you get over those last miles and keep that 3:30 kilometer pace? Because I looked at your splits and they were phenomenal. It was a second between him. You had a couple of 3:27s. You were banking a few seconds here and there, but you really still got to psychologically stay on that 3:30 mark for yourself, really, don't you?
Yeah. I think mentally, if you start to drift, you're done. So you have that in your head. You're don't drift, because I think if you start to drift, you continue to drift, and it's kind of a vicious cycle. So you just have to just, like, I suppose, like with the course that we were doing in Wrexham, like the last 2 loops, I just really just had to kind of fight in my head, you know, just keep telling yourself, just keep, you know, this pace. And it was really tough, the last lap especially. But yeah, like, and I suppose, like, you know, at that point when you're going into the last lap, you know, like I knew if I could just keep the pace that I had the Olympic qualifying time, I knew it, you know. So like it was mine to lose at that point. So I just, you know, kind of broke it down. Just every straight, I said, look, just get to the end of this road, then you have 1 or 2 miles left to go. Get to the end of the next one, and you can turn the corner and you can actually see the finish line, and you know you're going to do it, like, when you see the finish line. So you just kind of have to, in your head, just really like break it down and focus. And yeah, like when you put it into kind of manageable pieces like that, you can do it, you know. And I suppose there was a few people kind of up ahead as well, and you're just like, okay, just keep your eye on this person. If you can catch them, great, but like just don't lose them anyway. So you're just kind of playing games in your head, just playing mind games, just to kind of keep you focused and get you there.
Someone said one time, running is like a series of small arguments with yourself from the time you leave the house to the time you get back, you know, and to be able to, you know, really get yourself through that is phenomenal, like, because it can be, you know, it's like, a tough going. John, I just want to, you qualified then, so you're Tokyo bound, which is fantastic. And I never actually, when I got you to come on, congratulated you, but I think I introduced you and didn't congratulate you. But so the plan from here, I mean, the plan from here, I know that you're both going to America for some high altitude training stuff. I'll let you take it up there. John, maybe tell us a little bit about the preparation that's going to happen between now and getting to the start line in peak condition in Tokyo.
Yeah, prior to the race, we were pretty confident that she'd get the qualifier, barring a disaster. So the part of the build-up, if people have been following it on Strava, they'll see it's not a traditional build-up of 12 or 16 weeks. It was a 5-month build-up, but really with only a short specific area of about 6 weeks. And the reason for that was to save something back so she wouldn't be burnt out going into Tokyo as well. So I knew that she'd get the 2:29:30 and didn't want to hammer her and then be burnt out and then not be able to train for Tokyo. So we were holding back a little bit there. In terms of in terms of the where we're going and what we're doing, after the race, we sat down and we thought about it. Because obviously the problem is with COVID, everything's changing all of the time. So we were looking at the different options. And because I coach probably about 30 people in Utah, and it's at the perfect height. And one of the guys that I coach, a guy called Ryan Bybee, had said that for the duration after Wrexham up until the Olympics, we could have a log cabin that he's got there, and it's up in a lovely area of pine trails around the lakes. And in fact, it's very close to where Sonia O'Sullivan is at the moment with the Nike athletes all training around there, Park City. And he said we could have it for the whole time for free, so which is fantastic. But that then changed a little bit. There's been a few things that have changed a bit, but with now sort of look, I can't go out because my daughter's got a leaving cert coming up in the middle of June. So what's going to happen is Aoife's going to go out first and acclimatise to the heat and the altitude, adapt to the altitude, and then I'll come out whenever she's ready to start doing the specific work. Because again, we don't want to burn her out because of the 6 weeks she's done, the marathon that she's done already. So at the moment she's kind of recovering and transitioning back into training. And there's also probably with the vaccine as well, as she has the vaccine, then there's going to have to be a little bit of a step down there as well. So it's being sort of gradually tiered in. But we'll have another good 6 weeks of solid training that will build on what she's done now. And with the focus will be trying to manage the heat and working on the endurance side, because I think where the opportunity for Aoife is in Tokyo is to grit it out and work it through, because she's very tough and very strong. And if she runs a smart race, I think it's about seeing how far up the field she can finish and sort of setting that platform for what's going to come for later years as well.
Brilliant, yeah. And so hopefully I'm assuming after that you're going to think about retaining your national title in Dublin and doing some racing in Ireland and things like that. And I'm sure there's a few more road records that are ready to fall. Aoife, what's the plan after the Olympics? Obviously after a little break.
Yeah, so after the Olympics, hopefully, like I've discussed this with John, we'll be able to do the Dublin Marathon. So the Dublin Marathon will be the end of October. So we've discussed this, and kind of whether it's possible to do both, and we both think that it is. There's enough time between the two of them that I could recover and get back and do a few weeks and do a solid run in Dublin. So I would love to retain that national title. Fingers crossed that'll go ahead. After that, then so next spring I probably won't do a marathon. I'll probably kind of focus more on the 10 mile and maybe a half marathon. So I'd love to do a few of the 10 miles in Cork in the spring. I love that kind of time of the year in Cork when there's the Mallow 10 and the Cove 10, and there's some really good races on. So I'll kind of aim to do those. Probably go to Kenya before that, probably January, February kind of time. And then come back and do those races. And the plan then after that will be to do the World Championships the following, I think July they're on. So probably go to Utah and then to Oregon, which is actually really handy because they're quite close together. So it'll work out pretty well. And then Dublin again after that. So we're kind of going to keep that probably. Keep it that way for the next few years.
Yeah, it's a good plan, great stuff. And I suppose from certainly thanks for your time coming on tonight, Aoife, and thank you, John, as well. I'm conscious that I don't want to keep you too long. From all of us here at KFitt in Kilrush and County Clare, there are a few races in Clare. You could turn up to there if we could organise an all entry for you as well. Just on behalf of us here, we just really, really heartfully wish you every success in the future in your journey. And this woman has an absolute amazing backstory as well. I'd love to have got into it, but we're all about the running. Tonight we want to talk about running with Aoife Cooke, that we've got her and John Starrett. Absolutely amazing backstory and absolutely inspirational from a few turbulent times to actually getting on that flight to Tokyo. So we wish you all the luck and all the love in the world, Aoife. And John, we wish you all the luck as well, because it takes two to tango, baby. So thanks a million. And we'll be watching for you, Aoife. Every time that TV comes on, we'll be having a little look and stalking your Strava account. Thanks a million, guys.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks very much.